Good morning, everybody, and welcome to week number 6 of the American Literature 8-term semester. All right, I only have a few notes for you today. First thing I think that you need to know is that this is the week for exam number 2. Now, notice when you go into exam number 2 that there are 2 options. And by the word options, I mean they are options. You do not have to take both of these exams, but you do have to take one or the other in order to get full credit for taking exam number 2. The reason that there are 2 options is, remember, I gave you either last week for those of you that have caught up, or if you're doing a posting so far off in the future that you needed another week to get up to Nathaniel Hawthorne, I gave you a choice of one reading or the other. You don't have to read both the Minister's Black Veil and the Birthmark. You can choose one or the other. So the choices in exams is, one exam choice is for those of you that read Minister's Black Veil, and it should be evident by the title of the exam which one it is. And the other is an option for those of you that actually read the Birthmark. The only difference between the 2 exams is one has questions on the Minister's Black Veil, the other has questions on the Birthmark. All the other questions are the same. So you don't need to take both exams. In fact, if you take one exam and do poorly and try to take the second one, I'll count the first one. So be aware of that. I have emailed you exam study sheets. Check your email for that. And I also put those exam study sheets in the assignment instructions folder, just like I did with the study sheet for exam 1. So you have a study sheet there to help you understand what concepts you're going to need to know. It's the same format. It is 20 questions. 10 of them are general knowledge and 10 of them are quotations. These will only go as far as the Washington Irving and Nathaniel Hawthorne stories. They will not cover Ralph Waldo Emerson or Walt Whitman. They were supposed to, but because, again, I changed the schedule, you don't have to know Ralph Waldo Emerson or Walt Whitman for this one. You'll need to know those for the final exam. So that is exam 2, and that is due by next Sunday by midnight. Again, most of you did very well on exam 1. I see no reason why you shouldn't do well on exam 2. I have graded your postings all the way up to Anne Bradstreet and Phyllis Wheatley. I did not have time this weekend to grade the Founding Fathers ones, especially since you had to do 4 of them. But I will get to those later this week. But, as always, my first priority is going to be reading these first drafts that you have submitted and giving you the feedback you need on those to do well on the research papers, especially since the research paper does cover so much of your final grade. I also want to say that as far as the topic proposals and the annotated bibliographies, when I did last week's video, I went in and gave hundreds to everybody that turned in an annotated bibliography last week. As I opened some of these annotated bibliographies, it became clear to me that some students just turned in a blank sheet of paper, or they turned in something like the story that they're going to write the research paper on, and only the story. So I then went back and turned those hundreds into zeros because you had to have actually done research in order to get credit for the annotated bibliography. So if I got annotated bibliographies with nothing on them, then those were reverted back to 0 because it was clear to me that the student didn't do research. So the first drafts of the research papers, don't get mad if I don't get to them today, but I will get to them as soon as I can because of the fact that these exams do cover so much of your grade. So I will get you that input. Now let's go back to the postings. I gave comments on most of the postings all the way up through Anne Bradstreet. After Anne Bradstreet and into Phyllis Wheatley, I stopped giving comments because, 1, I had so many postings to grade, and 2, by now you should already know where your weaknesses are. One thing I was happy to see is that there was an increase in the numbers of 9s and 10s that I gave out on these exams, because it appeared to me that many of the students have been reading my comments and taking my comments to heart. So if you have, good job. And so if I gave somebody a 10 or I gave somebody a 9.5 or a 9, I didn't feel the need to make comments anyway, although in some cases I did. For most of the Wheatley postings, I didn't make comments at all unless there was something I felt like I had to say. Then I went ahead and put that in there. But for the most part, most of your Phyllis Wheatley postings have just a number. If you're still confused as to why your grades are lower than you would like, send me an email asking why. And at this point, it's likely I'll ask you to just give me a phone call or something like that rather than trying to answer it in an email. Because emails, I find, take a long time to write whenever I have to explain a lot. And sometimes a phone call or an office visit is the best way to handle it. So, your postings have been graded up through Bradstreet and Wheatley. I should start the Founding Fathers pretty soon. But I'm glad to see that many of you are getting your first drafts in on time of these research papers. That will only help your grade because I will now be able to go in and make my comments that are necessary. So, I think I've covered everything I got. So, again, if you have any questions that I can answer with an email, shoot me an email. Remember what my office hours are. They're posted on the syllabus. And you can either reach me by phone during those office hours or, excuse me, or you can come by and visit me in my office during those office hours. And we're coming down the home stretch now. We are in the 6th week of an 8-week semester. So don't worry, if this is starting to get a little bit tough, you've only got a couple more weeks of this left. So have a good week, and we'll see you in next week's video.